Well, welcome to Las Vegas. Welcome to SupplySide West 2022. Ben and I, it's early November, and we're here with the team at Nutrition21, Katie Emerson and Todd Spear, who was on our podcast a long time ago. And Todd, we are due to have you back. Thanks for having us here. We're very excited to go over your stuff, drinking a little bit of nooLVL that I enhanced a little bit more. And
I went with Nitrosigine, the fruit punch.
This is blueberry.
Yeah.
With a little bit of other watermelon.
Blue raspberry.
Oh, it's blue raspberry. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Cool. Well, it's super awesome to be doing this. I've done a podcast in one of these rooms every year, but we haven't done like a multi-person podcast.
No, you
so it's kind of fun. Yeah. We did Dave Sandler 2 years ago. Sarah last year.
Yep.
We talked a lot about the research and stuff, and that was right as Katie was coming on. So she's been vetted. She can be part of
I
content
wasn't
now.
ready last year.
Live on stage last year. She'd been with us for like 2 weeks.
You know, literally, I wasn't allowed to do the podcast, but I was allowed to get on stage and like do a presentation and compete.
Which she won.
I did.
Yeah. That was fun.
Well, the other thing, when I interviewed Katie, or she interviewed with the sales team, I was like, hey, literally the night before, hey, do you think you could do a pitch for us on Nitrosigine?
The next morning.
The next morning.
Yeah.
Where?
Like to us.
To the
So
to the whole sales team.
She's apparently very good under pressure.
Yeah. Definitely.
Think of your hardest questions and let's see how she does.
I got it.
Well, you were a huge help in finding that data the other day for the Nitrosigine L-arginine serum amounts. So we're off to a good start for the week. We have an answer on that question. Comparing it, it won't make it to this podcast. I need to verify everything.
Okay.
But super excited to be talking about that. So in the realm of sports nutrition, we've been talking a lot about Nitrosigine recently. So how long has Nitrosigine been out?
We did it in 2013. That's when we got our, what do you call it? What's the approval from the?
Grass?
No.
There's a patent. Well, there's a patent.
When you send it to
the ODI, the NDI?
NDI. Thank you, yeah. We got our NDI in March of 2013. We did our kind of soft launch in May. Back then there was SupplySide East. So we did a soft launch in 2013. It was in the Javits Center, and that's when we first started talking about it. And then it was at SupplySide of 2013 that we did our true launch on it.
Cool.
Okay, so for those who are listening, who are all up and down the scale of knowledge on the supplement industry, Katie, under pressure, what is Nitrosigine?
Oh, that's an easy one. That's not okay. So it's bonded arginine silicate with inositol. So the arginine amino acid, great for vasodilation, works on the nitric oxide production pathway, and then the inositol works on neurotransmitters. So we get some really cool cognitive benefits with it too.
But it is a fun thing to talk about because one of the last studies on Nitrosigine before nooLVL started coming out was featuring cognitive flexibility. There is a little bit of crossover in there.
In athletes, the difference is the population, right? So in in Nitrosigine, we've done 2 or 3 studies looking at cognitive function, including the ability of Nitrosigine to prevent cognitive decline due to exhaustion in athletes. Whereas nooLVL, the studies are done in gamers.
Yeah.
So the really different populations, when you're talking about traditional athletes versus e-athletes.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the criticisms has been, it's the same ingredient, which, is probably warranted in some ways, but it is, I think it's an astute, thought process that if I'm researching an ingredient as a gamer, I don't want to see hulking bodybuilders.
Right.
And if I'm a bodybuilder researching pump, I don't want to see gamers.
Yeah, but I think also it's not like we pulled this inositol dose out of thin air. We just published an abstract, the study where we evaluated different levels of inositol in combination with the bonded arginine silicate, and we found which one worked the best. And it just happened to be 100 milligrams. It didn't mean for it to be so perfect.
That's been published?
Yes, the abstract was published, and the paper was submitted last night. So
congratulations.
And when we were talking about this, when we decided on inositol as one of the ingredients we were going to try, our initial thought was we're going to need too much. We're going to need 1 gram, and then it's going to be this 2.5 gram dose, and that's just not very usable. And we were just stunned when it 100 milligrams is the sweet spot.
It was. We did higher levels, we did lower levels, and this one just came back more efficient in all the areas we were testing it. So
backing up everything for the rookies out here, this is a nitric oxide enhancement ingredient that improves vasodilation, blood flow, and everything. But it turns out, like in the sports nutrition market, we always talk about these ingredients for pumps and all that, like muscle to the blood, to the blood to the muscle and all that. Turns out that, guess what? Blood also goes to the brain. So that's where we get into the inositol. So Katie, what is inositol?
So that's a really good question. If you research it, you won't get a clear definition.
No, you won't. That's why it's kind of fun to write about because it's...
Right. Yeah, because everyone has a theory that plays a role in what it does. Where's the pathway exactly? You know, I've been on like chemistry.pub, and even there, it even says it's inconclusive. But the consensus is that it works in the neurotransmitters in the brain, especially the hippocampus, working on memory, focus, cognition, which is why we test it in those areas, because we know that, hypothetically speaking, that's how it works. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So does the inositol help stabilize? Is that part of like the stability part of so in general?
Well, that's what we call it.
It's mostly
inositol-stabilized.
It's mostly the silica.
Yeah.
It's mostly the silica.
What I remember Jim saying was that it is what allows the arginine and the silicate to exist in a 1-to-1 ratio and allow silica to exist as a monomer. Normally, silica likes to form polymers, which are pretty much unusable by the body. And why we use things like silicon dioxide as a flow agent, or coatings on pants and stuff, because nothing sticks to it. It creates this long polymer chain. Whereas in this, it's a monomer, which is why it's a good source of
And
silica.
When we look at the new paper that's going to be published on the inositol levels, we were actually evaluating the arginine levels in response to it. So I guess theoretically, it was stabilizing arginine more than silica.
That's awesome, because the problem was traditionally L-arginine is not as bioavailable. It gets broken down too quickly. You need huge doses. You take those huge doses, you're going to get gut problems, or there's a good chance it's going to happen, especially at the 6-8 gram level of arginine.
Have you ever seen the clinical dose for arginine AKG is, if I remember correctly, 12 grams, right? Take a look at the side effects.
And that's if it's bonded.
Yeah, right. Most of it's just admixture.
And I think that's one of the biggest things when we talk about Nitrosigine is most often, I was always talking about like the efficacy of it and what I get out of it. But I think when you put perspective on it, it's we're trying to get away from big dosages of other powders. I mean, some of the leading pump products out there, I mean, I love citrulline, but you got to take, multiple grams of it. And when I talk to people who, there's a pretty decent population of people who say pre-workout gives me gut issues.
Right.
It does.
It's almost always some sort of pump ingredient. Right?
If you have 8 grams, even if it doesn't quote unquote cause gut problems, when you're taking 8 to 10 grams of it, someone's going to have gut problems. It's just a lot.
It's not comfortable putting that much powder in your stomach.
You do want to have that before your workout.
Well, and then it's like, well, wait, for a while, the big thing is like my scoop is bigger than their scoop, right? And so I've got literally like, you got to dissolve 16 grams of, powder. So now you need 20 grams or 20, liters or
ounces.
Thank you. Ounces of water, right?
And all the flavoring and all this stuff.
Yeah, you're chugging all this stuff, and it's like, all right, well, I'm going to sit here for an hour before I work out, but in that hour, the efficaciousness of the ingredient or the premix,
I was happy about the big scoop craze because it at least got us away from like the crappy concentrated pre-workouts. It was good.
That's true.
It was a good metric of progression, but I think we're at a point where we have good data, we have some good stuff out there. We can back it off a little bit now. And 1.5 grams of nitrosigine is easier than a lot of those bigger scoops of products.
Less is more.
And the other side of it is you're talking about stabilizing arginine. A lot of times, early 2000s, everyone's talking about arginine, but we don't absorb very much of it at all.
No, because of the arginase breaking it down so rapidly. And that's actually one of the things when we were like, okay, why does this work better? We looked at it, and we were able to see that nitrosigine inhibits arginase. And that's one of the big benefits. That's why it works for 6 hours. Works in 15 minutes, lasts 6 hours. There's not a whole lot of ingredients, that can say that. And
most often, the most popular arginase inhibitor is going to be nooLVL, is what we most often talk about. And there's different studies on whether or not that's safe. And those people are like, oh, that was in vitro, whatever. It wasn't human data. But at the end of the day,
it's valid, but do you really want to take the risk?
Well, do you want to take the risk? And we also have a product here that does both.
Right.
I think, I think there's two things. One, there's probably an argument for the vasodilation and lowering of blood pressure. When we've looked at it, From a safety standpoint, it's keeping there is a modest jump,
but
decrease,
it stays
but
in normal levels.
It stays in normal levels. It's not significantly different, but numerically you can see a small reduction.
Right. So nooLVL is the gaming ingredient. Does it actually make gaming better? Can you actually say that, or does it improve like the cognitive tests that are like gaming? You studied gamers.
It was studied in gamers, and it did improve their scores. It also is decision-making skills, but there was actual quantification.
I think there's a fine line that I think Mike's getting at that's a little unclear. So to sit there and say, to clinically measure, this person played Call of Duty better.
It's impossible to test.
Yeah, like that's not. So what you do is a bank of validated cognitive tests before and after, administration in gaming, and see how the effects are. So it's in gamers. They are playing video games as part of the protocol, but it's not like you can say, my Call of Duty went up 50 points or whatever.
Yeah, you can't score Madden because everything's going to be different every game. There's no control.
There's so many variables,
There's too many variables.
It's skill too. You're talking. It's like, hey, if you take nitrosigine, is it going to make you a better football player? Well, it's how good are you at football to begin with? So there's a variable issues with that. But I think like the main score that we looked at was reducing errors. So that I feel like is the best way to translate.
That's what I was going to say. 60% reduction in errors.
Okay.
That's huge.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. So I know with nooLVL, you guys talked about the varying doses of inositol that you went through to figure out what would be better. When you were coming across the nitrosigine dosage, nitrosigine and nooLVL, for that matter, are really unique in the industry, as there is not really a range of supported doses. There's really only one dose. And you rarely see people using less. If you do, it's very...
You see a lot of 1 scoop, 2 scoop, right?
Sure. Has there been thought process into other dosages? Because I know like the safety...
You're gonna ask that question.
Let's go higher. Can we?
That's what I'm talking about. I know a couple years ago we had talked about someone going higher, and you were like, the safety data does not allow us to do that.
Yeah, our NDI doesn't. It doesn't allow it to go over like 1590 or something like that. Nitrosigine is unique in that you can feel it work, and it's a pleasant sensation, right? It doesn't make you itchy, or there's things that have effects that I really do not like. This is an effect that I think is quite pleasant, and I remember the first time I felt it. We had tablets back then. This is back in 2013, and I took them, and I sat down and started taking work. And so tablets take a lot longer to work because they got to digest, right? And I just sit down at my desk and start working. About 30 minutes goes by, and I was like, "Whoa, what is this feeling?" And then I kind of like put it together. It's like, that must have been nitrosigine. And I was like,
isn't that funny? I do the same thing with nooLVL. I'll be cleaning the house. I'll take it because I want to work out, and as I'm waiting, I'll kind of clean, and then all of a sudden I'm like dancing, listening to music, and I'm just like, whoa, where did this come from? It's really weird.
Yeah, and then like a couple days later, I was traveling with then our VP of Operations, Bill Levi. We were up in Washington State visiting a customer, and we're having breakfast. And I said, by the way, have you tried the nitrosigine tablets yet? And he goes, yes, I did. And he's, I was like, what was your experience? And he's like, what was your experience? When neither one of us wanted to tip our hand to the other. And I was like, I got this kind of interesting, pleasant, tingly sensation from my fingers to all over. And he's like, yeah, same too. And, and it was around this time that people in the gym started talking, that was around the time when I think it was Super Pump, one of the Gusari Super Pumps. They were one of the first big brands with it. They did it, and the guys in the gym were started talking about the sensation and the focus. And those of us in the office who had kind of started taking some tablets are like, man, I'm really effective at my job when I've taken this.
Yeah.
And that's really where we were like, we need to figure out, some cognitive tests and see what this is doing.
We took a couple different turns there.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I kind of really like the fact that it has one single dosage. If it's any less it's honestly kind of looked down upon by people in the community.
Yeah, I think what
There's a
listeners
standard.
and people in general need to
less than a gram and a half, or the fact that there's only one dose is looked down on.
No. If if you put less than a gram and a half, it's like no, that's not enough.
There's not a whole lot we can legally say, like talking about like claims or whatever, because it's been studied at this dose.
Right.
Yeah.
Only a few things. So if a company, I wanted to back it up real quick, and for the listeners, so they understand, like, you're a real company. There's some, I'm like, I mean that.
We're making this stuff in our garage.
Yeah,
No, I'm
this is
just
not,
kidding.
there's some supplement companies, and some of them may even be here, or ingredient suppliers that are going to throw stuff out into the ether, and use more, or like, but if you want to get like brass tacks, true, legally responsible about this, you have to behave like this.
Yes.
And so if we see a company using, for say, 1,200 milligrams in a pre-workout, which I'm sure is going to provide pretty good effects.
Yes.
And there are some things that we could possibly say. I cannot cite the 1.5 gram study.
Correct.
And you're not going to let some brand put in even a 1.5 gram dose, which is clinically studied, and put in ridiculous bar charts and stuff like that we used to see. Like,
Right,
we've grown
and
up.
I think,
And so it's an interesting point. Should we do some other dosage
I think,
studies?
To me, one of the challenges with 1.5 grams is you start getting into a higher capsule dosage.
Yeah.
So one of my
Yeah.
favorite Primeval Labs Vasal Gorge is nitrosigine, I forget, pine bark extract maybe?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay, and so, but it's like a 5 capsule serving size, which not everyone's going to want to do. Like, Ben and I, I've taken
that's
20.
easy for us, but normal people.
Yeah, no,
I
I
take
probably
a
wouldn't.
handful of pills,
Yeah.
but
Right.
I agree. Normal people don't.
I like the standardized thing. I love that you like. This is what we've proven. This is what it is. If you want to combine it with other stuff, that's the real complication.
Right.
You
Yeah.
start to like it. And it's one of the things I like about you guys, that you understand there's other companies out there. You understand that your ingredient's going to be alongside those. It's like, well, all those guys can play around with their dosages to meet this, but this is where it has to be for nitrosigine. Like you said, like if someone puts 1,200 on it, and I'm talking about it in a video, it's like, is it going to deliver a pump? Absolutely, 100%. You know, like there was technically
I think
claims that
1,000 is going to deliver. A
yeah,
pump.
there's technically a little bit of a claim at 750. Like we know it's
Yeah.
going to
We
do
know
something.
that-
We've done the PK data at 500.
Yeah.
but you're not going to get like the full, like really
Cognitive
meaningful
flexibility
Right.
studies.
yeah,
and
those
stuff.
kind of claims, right?
And so, I mean, there's all sorts of different companies out there now, but there's like different levels. It's like, well, I'll throw some in there for the claim. Then there's people who just follow just the study. The study says this is what we're going to use. There's definitely some very creative formulators these days that like understand the pathway and what's happening.
Oh, yeah, like
and
Joey?
I didn't want to like name anyone, just like to not, but like Joey
Yeah.
comes to mind immediately. Like someone who like he'd put like 1150 nitrosigine in something, and I'd be like, yeah, I got it.
I've had conversations with him,
Yeah.
and he's like very specific. He's like, I think this is going to be an ideal, and it's not 1,500. I think it's going to be ideal because I'm going to combine it with this. Do we need to pause while this airplane flies over or whatever?
We'll see how good our microphone setup is. And
Okay.
I mean, yeah,
but so
too much.
he's kind of come to me really Bryson.
Yeah.
And said like, no, I think that, if I do it in just this way, and he'll, geek out on some biochemical pathway that I don't understand.
I know. I had a really cool conversation with him too,
Yeah.
talking about it, and I mean, he really dives into it. So he's an awesome person to talk to about formulations.
Because he really drives home this thing that like has really kind of been a topic recently, is like, well, you're combining it with plenty of other things that do very similar things. So we have to understand, like, 1.5 grams may be like the dosage of nitrosigine on its own delivers a great pump, but then you start throwing in a little bit here, a little bit there, and it's like, well, I definitely think there's a point of no return with pump. There's definitely like how much more money we're going to throw at this, where I feel like, to be honest with you, like a decent pump product and a loaded pump product give me pretty similar pumps. You can only pump it up so much.
Well, there has to be a limit to the mechanism, right?
Right.
You can only vasodilate so much, and if you, like, I remember there was a competitor's product at one point that, like, we were looking at their claims and we're like, that can't be. Like, people would be passing out.
Yeah. And so the way that I look at it is like, you can add a couple other things that have a couple different pathways, but like if you want to add in something that's going to give you non-stimulant energy, like you got to have 1,500 milligrams of nitrosigine for that claim.
Yeah.
So like that's,
well, it's like the thing we've talked about, like the ever-increasing doses of citrulline. I mean, at one point it was 3 grams, then 4, 6.
Is it 8 now? Or is it 6 or 8?
There's a 10 out there now.
There's
but
12.
you can look at the. Is there a 12?
Yeah.
I've been waiting
Let's
for
just
it.
keep adding more.
Pumps have not gotten bigger over the last 6 years in the gym. Like, we all still look the same.
So,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, it's not like,
Well,
wow,
you can-
5 years ago
there's-
we weren't getting pumps.
With almost anything, there's a lot of diminishing return supplies,
Yeah.
right? And you can look at that curve on citrulline, and it goes like this, just like the protein ceiling. I know a lot of people object to that term, but there's a dose limitation to what's maximized. Your body's going to keep using it,
Yeah.
but you're not going to necessarily see, an optimization or an improvement.
That's an
over
awesome
that.
comparison. Because like with protein, like I care about the MPS response and everything.
Yes.
But like if I eat 100 grams of protein, like it's not like the
In a single sitting.
It's not the other 75 grams are like getting lost. You'll eventually use them. But like I'm only doing one workout. It's not like I need the citrulline for the next 12 hours of my day. I don't need it to be releasing for the rest. I'm just worried about this workout. And it's the thing that's kind of concerning about it is like I expect a bunch of online brands to do ridiculous doses of stuff, but we're seeing stuff that's like in Vitamin Shop or like whatever, like just like let's see how far we can send this. And it's like, all right,
Well,
let's reel us back a little bit.
It's a very American thing too, right? More is better.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
Kitchen
I'm all
sink,
about
right?
that.
Yeah.
Hey, I took 1,400 milligrams of caffeine in 2019. Like I'm all about sending it. You know what I mean? But like at a certain point, we gotta stop.
And he didn't sleep for 2 weeks.
But at a certain
Can only
point, I
imagine.
stopped and I was like, okay, we may have gone too far with this.
Yeah.
And rope it back a little bit. And I think that's happening right now because obviously there's been a lot of other trends as well, recession type stuff and supply chains and everything. We've had to stop and be like, maybe we don't need $25 COGS on pre-workouts.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe the $9 pre-workouts.
Well, I mean, that's a good point, though, because like even though the dose at 1.5, we've seen it's valid, it works in all these areas, but what if it could work at a smaller dose? And that gives it more versatility in new applications.
Yeah.
You can pair it with new things. Price point will be better.
I get into this a lot because you're selling in the U.S. dollar right now as we speak, early November 2022. U.S. dollar is clobbering everything right now. So if I'm in a country, I would love to have nitrosigine at a clinical dose in Argentina. Like, how cool would it be to get the international movement on that? So it's a big challenge though because their money's not, it devalues far more than the U.S. dollar. So because this is an ingredient that
International currency exchange is definitely challenging in any market, but you make a good point because, for a lot of people, supplements of any kind, let alone pre-workout, are, optional. They're not.
They're luxury.
They're a luxury
Yeah,
item. Thank you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But I see the benefits and it's not just the pump I come back to the blood pressure reduction. Sometimes I see great benefits to having these types of ingredients, and I would love to get more people in the world having them.
One of the things that we've seen, I see every label for every product, that's licensed. Every once in a while, someone messes
Sometimes
up.
I see
right?
the other one. Anton sees
Well,
them.
last year, the
I
guy
don't
you
know
found
how
at the
many
gym,
times.
that
Yeah.
was the most bizarre.
The what?
Last year, there was a
It's a story for another
Okay.
time.
off camera.
Yeah, right. But so I see like a lot of these labels in the thing that's been interesting over the last 2 years, right? The pandemic years, is that as people, I think it's what you were saying. It's like you're going to maximize your pump, whether you're using 1.5 grams of nitrosigine, you're using 8 grams of citrulline. Well, we've got University of
Arkansas.
Yes.
University of Arkansas study that's showing that
Shout out. Yeah.
that you've got statistically equal, but really if you look at it, we're a little better.
I like to just tell the truth. Like,
Oh,
it's not
absolutely.
significantly. It wasn't significantly better, but it was
Nominally
slightly
better.
Nominal,
You
is that the word?
can even say it was trending towards significant.
I've seen that,
Yeah, I
yeah.
know that's like the new term.
Yeah,
I don't love it, but
I've
I
never
mean,
liked trending.
The big roundup on all of it is like, why not get more out of less?
absolutely.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
but we're at a point where we all maybe can afford
Here it is.
this. But why not get more of less?
Nitrosigine.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
But here's what I
But,
think
you know,
would be
so
interesting
these
is like
are,
look at the dosages.
what do you call them?
right?
Percent change of it.
Percent bars, right?
I would
So
do 1.5
it's
with
hits
citrulline
within
and
this
see how
range.
they
And
size up with each other,
you
right?
See, like,
Yeah.
the averages are
We
close,
get
but
significance
there's
between
definitely-
them
There's some
that
people
way.
that have responded
Yes.
really
Yeah.
well to nitrosigine.
That's-
But,
Yeah.
but they were fair in doing the clinical dose in both the way that they did it, even though
For sure.
technically
Pop
it's
that
not
up
fair.
on the
For
video.
sure.
Yeah, we will. Cody, at this mile marker timestamp, we'll have to pop this little picture up.
Cody's
here.
gonna start putting that picture in all all of my reels for Nitrosigine.
I didn't even know
We're
about
gonna
this.
save it.
Is this
No?
something that we were? Okay,
That's
has this been public for a long time?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like 2
University of
years,
Arkansas.
right?
No,
first
it,
time I
it
came
was
here,
before the pandemic.
It was 2019. It was the first year I came
Yeah.
here. We promoted it at that dinner.
Yeah.
I might not have I'm missing a PDF or something. Okay, well,
We'll figure
good
it
to
out.
know. That's
Yeah.
why.
But-
See, that's why it's so much better to do these things in person.
Yeah.
So here we go.
So the big thing is, like I was saying with Katie, is like, why not get that pump with less?
Right.
Right? Like, we're definitely at a point where a lot of people can afford this.
Well, and think about it from like a supply chain, right?
Yeah.
Less weight, less water and
Yeah.
whatever else that you need to dissolve it in. Smaller canister. So, you can, if you want to go there, you can make an argument that is better environmentally, right? Because you're shipping
For sure.
less weight.
How much material can you fit in a stick pack? Does anyone know?
In one
I
of
think
these?
it's
Yes.
2 grams.
Because I'm guessing 8
Don't
grams
hold
of
me to
citrulline.
that.
Okay, I'm guessing 8 grams of citrulline malate is not going to
It would
play
be a
this.
sachet.
So, yeah, it's significant. So this.
This is a stick pack. A
Yes.
sachet is a wide stick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
So
I didn't
this-
even know
and
when
I
you
don't
said
wanna-
sachet. I was just,
Oh.
okay. Isn't that like a move?
You got it.
Like,
I knew what it
Yeah,
is.
okay. Someone got it.
So this with the flavoring, nooLVL is 2.3 grams. Nitrosigine is 2.2
And we're not about to
I
start
worked on
saying
the sticks.
sachet,
There you
so
go.
we're going to stick with the stick packs.
I was
Yeah.
close. I
Awesome.
knew it was round 2.
I'm
Yeah.
pulling up
we've
the
been-
boxes to make sure we're on. You keep talking. I'm just making sure.
Yeah, I was wondering how it's going to work out because you two are talking while we were talking, and
I
there's
know,
going to be
I know.
we're going to have to like split the audio right and left for the people to try
Well,
to
what I
figure
was
it out.
saying to him is, I appreciate the University of Arkansas by using the clinical doses of both.
Yes.
However, if we're comparing each other, I want to see a 1.5 gram dose of citrulline versus 1.5
That
grams
would-
of nitrogen,
agreed.
and then really see who truly performs better.
Mm-hmm.
Not that that's ever going to happen, but
Well, we did.
I think that would be pretty
actually
clear,
on
though.
the, next to that one. We did the NOS study that looks at the dose then I think was 3 grams of citrulline malate,
yes, yep.
or 3 or 4 grams,
I think it's
right,
3.
versus 1.5 grams. It's night and day.
This
Yeah.
is the one where we can look at the varying doses. Was that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Different products that do the same
this
vasodilation
actually
mechanism.
is the thing
We've
that
read
reminded me that hey, at one point it was only 3 or 4 grams that people were using.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
that was done like, I don't know, 2015.
The big comparison that we're setting up that I want to do is look at like what is the actual blood marker that we're trying to quantify here is a serum arginine, right? Like
Yeah.
kind of.
Arginase
Yeah,
too, and arginase
you can't
too.
measure nitric oxide
You-
in the blood. It's just too
you can-
fleeting. Not without.
You can measure nitrates though, right?
Yep.
You can measure nitrates. Is it nitrates? I
Nit-
think salivary nitrates.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have those
Well,
tests.
we've
We
been talking
talked
about
about doing
that.
those tests.
We
Yeah.
should have brought those for this podcast to
I
do.
actually-
Wait,
I bought them for
at
you.
home. Oh, you did?
Do you have them?
That must have been what showed up at my door. Yeah,
So it's in New Jersey right now.
yeah, it's in New Jersey. It
Fail.
does us a lot of help there. But the question for me is like, if the biomarker that we're looking at is bloodstream arginine, at a gram and a half, what number is that? And then compare that to 2, 6, 8, 10, 12 citrulline, because there's a comparison somewhere. I want to know what they do together too. Is the other
I do
thing?
too. I've always wanted-
like,
because-
if we're just being honest, like they're almost always combined, unless
yeah.
you're Drew Peters, who
More
for
is
some reason
better.
hates citrulline.
Well, that's what I started to say earlier. Though, is we're starting to see more without citrulline. We're
Yeah.
Well,
only
but-
nitrosigine.
But if there's a proverbial limit, a ceiling to the pump, arginine, whatever that
Right.
is, I think we can all agree like nitrosigine gives you a lot, and then you put some other stuff on top of it, and you hit that limiter.
Right.
But the question to me is between where nitrosigine is and that ceiling, how big is that gap?
that gap.
Yeah.
Because
that's what
I
I
don't
wonder.
think that gap is 12 grams of citrulline. I think it's like 4. And I think that's a compelling argument, is like use nitrosigine and you can use less citrulline. That cuts a bunch of costs. For the record, that was my claim, not Nutrition21. I'm saying that.
We were talking about
I'm
this.
like, I'm gonna be quiet.
I'm
over here.
hypothesizing and pontificating here. But theoretically,
Yeah.
I think that is a good question.
Yeah.
Because there is an upper limit of like to the point where I can't squeeze my bicep anymore. What is the difference between 1.5 grams and that? And because I think a lot of the time we're like sending it way more than that than it needs to be.
Yeah.
True, but I mean, even the concept, the idea is basically what Velositol is with protein,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we know that they just work better together.
Yeah. And it works the first time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
That's a big thing.
last question. We're talking about combining ingredients, and I do want to get into Velositol and Chromium and all that. Are there any any ingredients that Nitrosigine or nooLVL do not play well with?
Like in what aspect?
I've got one off the bat.
Either
badly.
overly overlapping or cancellation. Like, is there
I don't know of any
stimulant that?
Well,
yeah.
I mean, technically, it will kind of buffer stimulants because they will raise your blood pressure, and this will kind of bring it back a little bit. We've seen that. Speaking of Joey, I'll give all the credit of that concept to Joey. Was that they had a pre-workout with a decent amount of yohimbi and caffeine, and they were using pump products to kind of back it off a little bit while still having the stimulant effect, making it a little bit more comfortable for folks.
I mean, technically, if you think about increasing vasodilation and then you pair it with something like caffeine, chances of it spiking.
I mean, it's kind of the interesting thing about putting stimulants in pre-workouts, right? Because, you want to vasodilate for your pump, but stimulants reduce vasodilation.
You're going there. You're going there.
This is a sensitive
topic. We have a whole blog about this not being true, Todd.
I don't know, man.
Cerebral blood flow is 100%. That's why it's an excedrin.
Oh.
That's why caffeine.
Right, yeah.
It constricts blood flow to the brain. But that's where things like nooLVL, it opens it up.
Right.
Yeah. Sweet. Absolutely. I think that's a positive cancellation, honestly.
I mean, ISSN does a whole paper about caffeine and non-responders and use in pre-workouts and other supplements. Katie, you're probably a lot more familiar with that than I am, but
I'll have to look at it. Is it their position stand on caffeine, or is it just like a...
I think they do have a position stand.
Yeah, they do, and they talk a lot about genetic markers, too.
That's what I was going to say.
So
maybe, both things are true depending on who you are.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
and
the fast
you respond
and slow.
differently.
Exactly.
Yes.
There's more to it than just speed, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about metabolization of caffeine
There was
recently.
The work
performance
that
measures,
Nancy
too.
Guest did was
Some
on
people
caffeine.
performed
It's really
great,
cool.
some just didn't.
Right.
Yeah. That's why I can take 1,400 and other people take 200.
Right.
100%.
Yeah,
that was we did this whole podcast about caffeine, and the whole time I'm sitting there like, I handle it great. I know what you guys are talking about. Like, I love it.
He was beat red, right?
I was
like cartoon theme coming up.
Dripping sweat.
Stop
He's like, I
talking about
feel
my
amazing.
love. Stop talking about my beloved caffeine. So, let's talk about Velositol.
Yeah. So you mentioned protein. I don't know. I have no.
It's my favorite product.
Why?
By far.
She has said that since the day I met her.
Velositol, go.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I think that was what brought me to Nutrition21 was Velositol, because I was coming off my clinical rotations as a dietitian in the hospital. I was watching people recover, and as a dietitian, it's give them protein, give them more protein, But then you're talking about people, that can't, digest a certain amount of protein. As you get older, you start decreasing gastric juices to break down protein. I worked with the football players, and they get off the field and you give them a 40-60 gram protein shake and they throw it up because they can't stomach it. So when I heard about Velositol being able to work in a way that you can consume less protein and see even greater benefits, my mind was like, I don't understand.
Right.
More is better, right? We're talking about more, less is more. But in protein, I think we've all learned more is better, and you start to see better gains, better muscle, better recovery. But with Velositol, it kind of changes your whole mind frame of how it actually does the opposite.
So for the rookies listening, what is Velositol?
It's a chromium complex, chromium picolinate, chromium histamine, and then amylopectin. So it's a waxy maize, and they really work on muscle cells. So it helps to kind of raise insulin just enough. And we do have safety measures showing that doesn't cause crazy insulin levels to go up. But then that really helps getting those amino acids into the muscle cell. So you start to see better MPS, muscle protein synthesis. So all those gains that you want from your workout really get enhanced when you eat protein, but can you get more? And so that's where Velositol comes in.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you're on your podcast app, you can scroll all the way down, and we have Todd Spear there talking about it
a long time ago.
Yeah, that was actually the second take we did, because he just didn't feel good on the first one.
Remember too, I was on vacation when we tried the first
one.
That was
planes
flying.
I love the concept of Velositol. It's a very modern concept right now, because it's instead of feeding yourself more, why don't we just
make it work better. And
use science to our benefit,
if
and
our
actually
insulin's not
utilize
doing
it.
its job, then there's something else going on. You can slam on as much protein as you want.
Yeah.
And what's cool is that since that original podcast, I was going to say, is that more data has come out since then. Yep. So that's in a way out of date. So it's good that we kind of catch up with it.
We were talking about that day the other night, and it was funny. Again, this is not a claim from Nutrition21, but in my brain, I look at it differently. I look at it as a standalone, because you look at the early adaptations kind of study with the performance and the body composition, like earlier on, if you have like an 8-week cycle of training and eating well, we saw the gains that you would see like kind of appearing earlier because you're utilizing that protein better. So it's kind of like if you imagine, gain an X amount of muscle over a bulk, you're getting that results earlier on.
Yes.
And you can get more out of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think taking a step back, we have a lot of problems with minerals in our society. Our agriculture has been strip mined, and we don't have a lot of the data is on potassium, magnesium. But if you look at all these different markers in our soil's not as good as it used to be. And I personally believe, this is not a Nutrition21 statement, I personally believe that if we were to go back in time and look at soil 100 years ago versus now, chromium would also be low.
There's a study, actually. They looked at soil levels, not 100 years ago,
right?
But like measuring the nutrients in the soil, and they've seen that it's declined.
Yeah, definitely. So I personally believe that chromium's probably changed as well. And I think that we need more of these minerals. Everyone, I don't want to say everyone, but so many people do so much better if you supplement a high quality magnesium, zinc, which you have a ZinMax for that and everything. I personally put chromium in that boat for me personally as well, and to think that it should be, I would love to see Chromax, I guess, in multivitamins and stuff more often than it is. And sometimes it is.
It is definitely in some multivitamins. I mean, one point that was in a lot of multivitamins. It still is in quite a few good formulas. But I agree. I think chromium is, well, in general, I think minerals are overlooked. I think they're starting to get their due. And it's funny because for years you've heard people, particularly on the organic side of farming, talk about, our soil is degraded, blah, blah, blah. And so finally I was like, is this really true, or is this just one of these things that people say? And I kind of looked into it, and I'm like, there's actually some research that shows that this is true.
Yeah. I like what you guys are saying about putting in multivitamins, because I think so many of the supplements that we use today, it's like, I got to use this. I got to take my GDA type ingredients with carbohydrates. I got to take my nootropics before my work. And I took a step back from using 75 things at different hours of the day, and then just having I
take them once.
Did you have one of those grandma things?
I did.
Tabs?
I did. But I brought it all back. It's like I don't worry about taking my GDA like 25 minutes precisely before I finish my actual meal or something. Like, I use it daily, and I'm overall giving myself, that chromium, the better benefits. Like you were saying about, it's not going to drop your blood sugar like 50 points right away.
Well, it's like, I don't remember if it was Doug or Hector or Tim, like at ISSN, they're talking about the metabolic window, right?
Yeah.
For protein. They're like, it's more like a barn door.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's like, for a long time, it's like, you got to get that protein within 45 minutes.
My husband and I have this argument all the time about the nutrient window, and I'm like, I swear, like, there's research. It's more like,
a barn door.
Yeah, it kind of slides back and forth.
I mean,
it's not,
yes, there are peaks, but there's definitely benefits, like with protein, for the next 24 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If all of your options to create progress and better body composition are a pyramid, that timing of that stuff is further up the pyramid.
Correct.
Yeah. Like, your overall energy balance is the most important thing.
For
of course.
sure.
Quality matters, timing matters, but the order of those things is,
exactly.
You have to have the
You
foundation.
got to throw out this idea that, like, it's been an hour, I missed the window. No sense in taking that protein now.
Yeah, or if the only time you get good protein in is post workout, but the rest of your day you're eating McDonald's or just not eating,
it's a small piece of the puzzle.
Yeah,
but to your point, like with the athletes coming off the football field, right? Like, handing them a protein, like, give them 15 minutes.
I know. Especially when they throw it up and you go, guess what? I get to make you another one. It's terrible.
What college was this?
University of Miami, right?
That's embarrassing.
No, but you have to
come out of a workout, you can't hold out a protein shake.
Well,
have you ever been gassed that bad?
But have you ever played in Miami Heat with all that padding on for hours, and they are working you? And then talk about coming off of like a bad loss that weekend.
Yeah.
Workouts, practices are a little bit more intense.
It's been a while since I've trained that hard, but I'm going back to the feeling, or like insane swimming workouts where I just call it the heats. I got the heats, and I'm starting to overheat. And if you threw me a protein shake at that moment, bad things are happening.
I remember throwing up cycling when I was, collegiate and high school level cycling. Just, really probably not knowing my limit and trying to push, and really causing myself to throw up with, frankly, very little stuff to throw up. You know?
I heard a theory about why that happens. There's not a lot of literature on why people puke during workouts. It's the acidity of your overall body. Your body is purging the most acidic area of your body because your body's overly too acidic. This is from Dr. Mike Azuritel. I think he did actually have a little bit of citations for this.
I could buy that.
Yeah, so basically your body's overall too acidic. If you got to get rid of acid, like what do you throw up?
That range in which, though, you know, you like with the alkalization of blood and stuff, you look at the range, it is really, really narrow.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about that.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not buying it.
I don't buy the alkalinity stuff overall. Like, here, I'm going to drink this little bit basic water.
Please don't get me started on that topic.
It's going to go through the most acidic part of your body, and that definitely is going to go change the rest of your body. Like, your stomach acid definitely carries that. It's super basic.
Your stomach acid, I mean, your stomach is acidic, but your small intestine is basic.
Yeah.
So it's all switching like very rapidly when it gets to.
Have you ever seen those memes? It's like this simple one supplement will change your entire body, and it's like this giant picture of like chemical processes, like 15,000 lines. It's like, this one thing is going to affect this whole thing. Of course. All right. So I want to apologize to Matt that we're talking about alkalinity of water. We should probably get back. Yeah. We've actually hit a lot of our topics just
have we?
Very organically. Yeah.
Okay.
So Velositol, again,
we were talking about Velositol and kind of moved into Chromium and minerals and everything, which I love. But Velositol, I mean, what's cool about Velositol is that it allows you to get more muscle protein synthesis at lower doses of protein right?
No, absolutely. You're absolutely. I have a habit of talking over people. I apologize.
Go for it.
But what I say is, you know, the thing that I think is really game changing, like you can talk about, it doubles your MPS, you know, increases the fractional synthesis rate. That means something to like 0.5% of the population.
Everyone here.
Everyone here. But nobody listening.
We're buying, right?
Yeah. But what really makes a difference is when you look at the endpoints. We did the endpoint study, right? And you can see, you know, improvement in the number of squats you can do, like significant. What is the number?
12 to 15 squats rep to failure. Better than the placebo group.
It's funny because it's like, the different magnifications of a microscope could change the entire perspective on it.
Yes.
Like looking at the muscle protein synthesis change or the blood sugar change is a legitimate claim. It 100% does that. But when you take a step back and you look at what it does when you take it for 8 weeks.
Increases jump power, increases strength, increases endurance, right?
Yeah.
These are meaningful things. I was actually just talking about this with another customer this morning who will remain nameless. But we were talking about like that's much more meaningful, I think, to the people who don't live and breathe and die by nutrition than it doubles my muscle protein synthesis.
It's almost
that's
like
a great soundbite in our industry. Like you can go to talk to whoever is walking into Lifetime Fitness. They have no idea. I was not throwing shade at Lifetime. Just realized how that sounded.
I don't care. No paying members.
They got nice pools.
They do.
Anybody walking into a gym, right, that's just there to exercise. They're not there to get jacked. Those people, like, they know, I can double my squat reps to failure. That means something to them.
I can lift 20 pounds more in my 1 rep max squat. I mean, that sounds great to me. I think the most appealing one is the jump height. Like, it's 3 inches. Cool. Yeah. You can jump 3 inches high.
Yeah. That's significant.
I'm sorry, I'm a white girl. I can't jump. So you're telling me I can jump 3 inches higher? I'm like, hey,
got me to 4.
Nice.
I think it's funny because that first claim set becomes like the mechanism of action for the rest.
Yeah.
Right.
Like ironically, that becomes why all this other stuff happens. And we were talking about this for a while the other day, and all of a sudden I started looking at the Velositol, just be like, when I look at it from this perspective, it's like a completely different product. It's like a standalone almost. Yeah. It's like a muscle builder. It's like I could see it instead of just being in proteins. I could see it in a variety of other products.
Well, I think the thing that Katie and I have been talking about, and I'm not 100% sure if we can leave this in, is that when we look any proteogenic amino acid that we've or any protein source that we've combined it with, we've seen an improvement.
Yeah.
And I suspect that, and we have zero research to show this. This is my speculation. I suspect that any amino acid is going to increase the bioavailability of, because that's the mechanism of action, right? You're improving insulin handling, you're improving amino acid uptake.
And we want to see comparisons between all of those.
I want to see data on collagen.
So many people have
I just said that to the
it's
other
been
day.
trending
What kind of data you want to see? Because one of the big things is that collagen is not a recovery product. It's it's
okay. So
for
someone like you probably wants to see if it can be turned into a recovery product. I don't want to see that. I want to see. I just want to see better amino acid uptake of the amino acids that are already in collagen.
Well, I want to see both. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I'm very curious. Like I use collagen for my connective tissue, and I love it for that. But I don't count it towards my protein amount.
Right.
But
I'm so proud of you. I was going to say, don't replace it.
Listen.
It's an incomplete protein. I get so mad when athletes are like, I'm going to take a collagen instead of my protein. And I'm just like, no, you're not. Like, you need all the amino acids. So you add it to your protein, cool. So like I hear what you're saying, like maybe with Velositol it'll work better, but
Our spouses have so much to talk about.
Really?
Yes.
Wait, you think your wife would agree with me or just
No. I just like the lectures that they probably hear, the sound points. We give our partners the same
my
sound
husband
points.
and I
Part of our lives involves dealing with what's coming from what's being pushed down from mainstream media or what's happening in the marketing world, and so collagen is less expensive. You could flavor it easily, whatever the story is. So now you have tons of collagen getting pushed, and it's going to sometimes get pushed into the wrong hands. Part of our jobs is to educate, and part of your jobs is to appropriate sell the right stuff. So maybe putting a study on Velositol for collagen is an end around, but I'll take any ammunition we can get in terms of making things work better for people. When we have all this metabolic illness and everything, I want everyone to get everything they can out of their products.
Yeah.
I think that it is something. It's certainly not the first time we've heard that suggestion. I think you've said it to me before. Other people have said it to me. I've had potential customers call and say, "Hey, have you done this?" We've had internal conversations. Let's face it, unfortunately, there's a limited amount of money you can spend on research. There's a limited amount of time you have, to put, just the resources to put into it. Not just dollars, but time, energy. There's only one Katie. I wish we had 10 of her.
There's only one me. I can't do all of it. But but I agree. I wish we could, because I would love to see. We've done the preclinicals looking at pea, soy, BCAAs. I want to see it in a human clinical trial, and see how it works, but also collagen. And because, if it's showing that the amino acids from each protein that you're giving it are being absorbed, plant-based proteins that are inferior to whey, can we make them compete with whey? I don't know. I can't answer that question. But we've seen that
we've seen animal trials.
We have, and we've seen in that application, it does work. It improves it. So I just want to...
Improves it in muscle protein synthesis?
Yes.
Okay. Because that's my question.
We've been in an animal model. We've made incomplete proteins, like a vegetable protein. I believe both soy and pea protein work as well or better than whey alone.
Yeah, because what we were saying, I agree with you. I don't think we need a lot of sports nutrition studies. I'm selfish as an athlete. I want to know more. But I think in the realm of collagen is if we make it work better, how much better is better? Does it start to encroach into a whey territory? Because there's a lot of other claims. Every time we talk about whey, there's a lot of other claims than just muscle recovery. Right? Immune response. There's a lot. And collagen, if you did collagen studies, there's a lot of beef protein isolates out there that would all of a sudden love to use the name collagen. There's a lot of people calling collagen beef protein isolate. It technically is, but I think that would change a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I love to see it. We're starting to see Velositol with amino acids. We just talked about it just this week.
So a while back, or in this podcast, I wanted to say, you're talking about greater, having more. I like the idea of lower doses of protein because of protein bars.
Yeah.
And Mark Globiner. I love eating out Mark Globiner.
I love outright bars.
We need more than just outright bars to use Velositol.
We need all the outright bars to use Velositol, Mark, if you're listening.
Not just the mocha.
Not just the breakfast.
Was good.
It does work for 6 hours, so if you eat that one in the morning, you can eat your other outright bars for the rest of the day.
That's true.
Well, you know what I find with that is I actually can only eat
I just want
half
all
of the bar.
flavors, not two of them.
Yeah, we only have 2.
Okay, so half of the bar because it has
because I feel so full.
For
yeah,
the
they're
breakfast
very
bars.
filling.
Yeah, I eat half the bar, I save it, and I eat it like another hour or 2 later.
That does bring us to some Chromium research on satiety.
Exactly.
And so I went down the rabbit hole on this article, and I was reading the studies that they were citing, and it really the takeaway I got from it was that giving people, it's tough to say this in a legal way or whatever, but it was improving mood, really.
Yeah?
No, you can
It's
legally
what
say
if-
that. Yeah, there's 2 or 3 studies. I think Davidson is one of them, where they actually the people were suffering from
Depression.
atypical depression,
Yep.
which is depression where it's the more common form of depression, and largely people eat more. So it's called atypical because it increases your appetite. Atypical increases your appetite. Typical depression decreases your appetite.
Wow. I didn't know
Okay,
that.
so that's the difference between the 2 forms of depression. Atypical depression is the more common form, and basically you're self-medicating with food, right? The food improves your mood, and so oftentimes you'll hear about people suffering from depression through weight gain. That's atypical depression, and what they found was, and it likely ties into the satiety directly, is that they reduced carbohydrate cravings, they reduced caloric intake, and so I mean, there's, we're not saying to your point about legality, right?
Right.
You
Yeah,
can't say,
I know.
oh, if you're depressed, take this and you're going to
Exactly,
feel better.
right, no,
but
but-
because that's a disease claim. But there was a study done on people with with atypical depression, this condition, and they saw a benefit.
Right. And for me, this goes back to just the minerals in our soil. I think a lot of people need more chromium. You start giving them chromium or Chromax, things just start getting better.
Yes.
And different people are going to have different things become better. Muscle protein synthesis potentially over here, but possibly over here, a little bit of mood. Like our bodies are craving something, but my body can't send me an email and be like, "Hey, Mike, I'm low on magnesium or I'm low on chromium."
Yeah.
So if we just our body sends us
your
the hunger
body,
signal.
your body does send you the signal, which is whether or not you notice it, right? Like for me, whenever I don't take magnesium, I'm a big magnesium fan.
Huge magnesium
And when I don't take enough magnesium, I get leg cramps.
Muscle cramps, yeah. That was
Yeah.
probably a bad example, but
Or
in
poor
general,
sleep.
though, yeah.
But
our
you're
body's
right.
just
I mean, not
hungry.
everything you're going to do that,
Yeah.
right? But that is one.
Interesting. Huh.
That for me, I mean, and the thing is, you've got to figure out what that signal is, and then, a lot of people don't have a lot of body awareness. I know as a young man, as a cyclist, I had horrible body awareness. Horrible. Now at my ripened, is that the right word? Age? My aged version of myself, I have a lot more awareness of what my body's trying to tell
Is
me.
it awareness to the things that you were already feeling those things before, you just didn't attribute them to what it was?
Yeah, like I was a
you had leg
cyclist, and
cramps?
I would bonk every time I went out, because I didn't prepare and
Right.
eat. Oh, this is because you don't have enough food. That's how stupid I was.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
To
I
be
get that.
good.
As opposed to it was oh yeah, you ride until you bonk. That's what you do, and then you push through it. Shaking. Am I going to make it
But you're
home
a
this
hardcore
time?
athlete.
So you're saying
right?
I could
you're
have
pushing.
Yeah.
eaten something and done better? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing
Yeah.
concept.
I totally understand
It's
that.
true. It's age.
I was a
think.
carbivore too, It's I
But you-
lived on carbs.
As an endurance athlete,
As an
that's
endurance.
normal.
Well, yeah, And now I'm older. I was like, man, if I'd eaten some protein, I would have been. Who knows? I might have been
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Hindsight's 20/20, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially
well,
as an athlete. I see
Yeah.
that all the time. Looking back, oh wow, I could have been doing so much better if I knew then what I know
Yes.
now.
God,
I could have been so much more efficient.
I wish, as a high school athlete, I was educated on nutrition. How much?
Yeah.
I mean, I would show
Dude.
up at cheerleading and eating a Big Mac, and my coach would be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know."
Calories.
Overloading, yeah.
One
So
calories.
I swam in the late 90s, and carbs. It was all carbs. Turns out that I work very well, especially swimming, with just high amounts of red meat, which everyone was afraid of. Give me steak and eggs, and I'll outperform carved up Mike. And so I peaked in my swimming 10 years after I was competitive, which is kind of kills me. But that was a product of the environment, and I don't know. And part of me is jealous. Part of me is not jealous because I lived in the 80s and 90s, and it was awesome. But part of me is jealous that these kids who are young now have the internet, and they are able to listen to conversations like this and understand.
But unfortunately, there's a lot of charlatans producing ridiculous content.
I know.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's our job.
And well, that's your job. It's Lane Norton's job, but like.
But also, that's why, not to like plug Nutrition21, I know it's right here, but that's why I love this company, is because there's so many supplements out there that don't do research, that are just pulling dosages out of thin air, thinking that they're going to work, whereas we actually thoroughly research the crap out of what we're doing.
Because you're a real company.
Like I know, so it's like, and it's great for if you can find, good podcasts and articles to read and educate yourself. It's just more of getting it out there. It's just hard with Instagram and Facebook, people putting just crap in your face.
Yeah, and that's why we try to do everything. We have the podcast where people want to listen to a longer thing. We have blog posts with someone going into 100 citations, but then also Ben's doing great with the 1-minute clips. You got to hit them on every angle.
Those are great.
Yeah. Well, it's about finding. These kids are making content within the realm of what's viral, and just accidentally shoving in horrible information. I have to take our good information and convert it into a format that does well.
Yeah.
I was visiting one of my cousins recently, and actually it's been a couple years, but her son plays football, and she's like, "Remember, Coach wants you carb loading tonight for your game tomorrow." I was just like, "Oh my god!" And really, people are still thinking you can carb load.
Yeah, big pasta night before a big
pasta dinner. That was really good for me.
We used to go before a big competition. We'd go to Olive Garden.
Yeah, I know. I mean, but that's what we did in the '90s. But by now, I was like, how are these coaches of? This is Texas, right? These guys live and breathe football. They should know at least some basic nutrition.
You would think.
Well,
think about doctors. Think about my husband. The amount of nutritional education that they get is so minimal.
Class.
It is one class.
Katie, to be completely fair, I went to school for dietetics. You actually finished the degree. How many of your colleagues know anything about sports nutrition? Actual No, a fair of them probably are still into carb loading.
Yeah, so the problem was the sports nutrition and the dietetics realm and nutrition master's degrees. I was even speaking with 2 people last night who did kind of similar to you. They did the master's program, but they didn't go to the RD route. To do sports nutrition, you have to actually search. I had to find the internship at UM. I had to take extra classes on top of my core classes to learn about XFIZ and sports nutrition.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I learned more. My mom hates when I say this, but I learned more on the internet than I did from college.
Yeah.
It's stuff that I actually apply.
I always say YouTube University. You can learn how to fix your diet, fix your washing machine.
Yeah.
I think it's an incredible thing.
Yeah. For school help
you can also find the wrong way to do all those things too.
It takes discernment.
100%, totally. And it's ridiculous. There are tons of athletes that still believe I should eat as much as possible.
You and I have had this conversation a million times, right? I've been in this industry for 23 years now. When I meet somebody new and they're like, "What do you do?" Oh, and I tell them. The first thing they start doing is quizzing me, what should we be taking? There isn't necessarily good sources of information that regular people can find.
What's your favorite pre-workout?
It's
what diet
the instant I tell people what I do for a living, I know what my conversation is going to be for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. No, it's not.
Company.
It's the same as anybody else does. You just never met anybody.
Yeah.
So if I don't want to have a conversation, I lean on the technology side of PricePlow. I'm in a hurry. It's a tech company.
It's difficult. I like helping people, but most people don't want to help themselves. It's the hardest part.
For sure.
And you can have an hour-long conversation. They won't apply any of it.
Yeah.
And it's
I know
it's
all the ways what I need to do to lose weight, but I'm still tubby.
Got a dad bod. That's what it's called. Okay?
I'm just like Leo.
Yeah. I'm not going there. So, looking forward for Nutrition21. Going forward, what are the next goals? What is the current mission?
Man, that's I think
broadening the market.
Yeah.
Probably. I feel
sorry.
We've done sports nutrition. We've hit sports nutrition hard head on. We've got the pre-workout, the post-workout. We've got the body composition. We've got esports. Gaming products. But what else is out there? What more can we venture into? So that's where Listriva came in for beauty from within. We're talking healthy aging, more cognitive for the working professional.
Right.
Even the topic of like kids comes up sometimes. Like, are you going to make a supplement for kids? I have no idea. Like, but just kind of reaching into more markets. But
yeah,
I love
that's
sports,
exactly right.
so-
Like, sports is near and dear to both of us.
Yeah.
And really, I think everybody at Nutrition21, but we realize that there's a lot more to the industry, to the market, to general health than they're just sports. But one of the things that was great with sports and the consumer is they're early adopters, right? And so you can, take a NooLVL, a Nitrosigine, a Velositol to them, and they kind of create the halo. And like you're formulating, the 2% for, it's the 2% formulating for the 98%, like Dan says it goes, right? I just bungled that big time. Sorry, Dan.
Formulate to the 1%, market to the 99.
Yeah.
But the formula works for that
Right.
1%, right? I think
Right.
I think Nutrition21 nails that for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that speaking on that, like the best thing you guys can do is provide the most quality product with the best studies and data that they can utilize, and let these marketing machines take it off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Like it should not be Nutrition21's job to teach the 20-year-olds at the gym why they need Nitrosigine. There are people who speak their language.
we try to help with that message, though.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right.
But the best way I think you can do that is by providing quality data.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? And
Yes.
in an industry of mouse and in vitro data, you guys provide human data, which makes it very easy for those companies to talk about it in an effective way. You make it easy for us to talk about, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's why we keep doing research.
Yeah.
We like to push the ingredients, talking about dosage. Can we play around with that? Can we find new endpoints? It's like Nitrosigine going into a cognitive. It's all because of that one person saying, hey, his inositol is in there. You should check out
Yeah.
cognitive abilities. And
Yeah.
boom, a new product.
Yep.
So, looking at our current products, what other areas can we go? What
Yeah.
about new products? Sleep and mood, stress, things like that. Things that I think we all kind of experience and want something that can be validated through the research that we do.
Absolutely. Well, that's beautiful. I think that was a great way to end the podcast.
It was.
I don't know how much more we want to really milk it. So,
This has been fun.
yeah.
I'm really interested in seeing what this sucker gets cut down to.
I just flew in.
I got some real gems in there.
Yeah.
I wasn't 100%. I just got off the airplane, out of the Uber and everything, and this just got me fired up.
This is
Thank you.
for Katie and I. This is the third day of Vegas talking stuff. So some tongue
I want
twisters.
to say it one more time for this week. I've been here since Friday.
Yeah.
It's Thursday.
You went on a private jet. I don't want to hear. It's
Oh
like,
yeah, you got a private jet. You didn't tell me that part.
I
You didn't see his
want to be
Instagram?
that guy.
Oh, I'm working
I've been
on
following Ben's,
Instagram.
Ben's personal Instagram
yeah, that's
vicariously.
what I'm like, I was like, whose jet are you on?
I've been all over. Well, who the person who owns that jet sells a lot of Nitrosigine, so that's what
There we
matters.
go.
Why weren't we on that jet? I'm just saying. Like,
Well,
I didn't know anybody that
I don't know
any of
anyone
our
that owns a
customers
jet.
had personal jets. You gotta start talking to people more.
Well, I'd like to propose a quick toast with the Nutrition21 Shakers. Thank you for
thank you guys.
Thank you
great
guys.
conversation.